everybody, Ryan Medora here, and welcome back to another bass lesson. Today we're going to explore the world of rock and visit a song by Radiohead, Creep, and it's featuring one of my favorite bass players, Colin Greenwood. You can learn about him in my book, Bass Players to Know, but we're going to talk a little bit about what makes this song really cool, some of the theory behind it, and if you want to get tab, notation, anything like that, please head over to my Patreon page and you can support there, get stuff for this lesson and plenty of the others at this channel. But in the meantime, let's learn a little bit about this song and about why this bass line is, one, great for beginner players if you're getting into the world of rock. It's a great repertoire song, and two, some of the theory behind it. So this song is interesting because it's in the key of G, but it's not like totally diatonic. When we say something is diatonic, that means that we're kind of living in a key and we're playing by the rules of a key. So if we say, hey, we're in G major, we're kind of under the assumption that all of the notes are going to be from our G major scale. So we would start here and kind of play up our G major scale, but that isn't necessarily the case all the time. So there are plenty of songs that stay diatonic that use the notes of the G major scale as well as the chords built off of all of those notes in the scale, but it's not always that way, and some of the greatest music that we have, pushes the boundaries of harmony and stuff like that. So that's something that we're going to talk about today. So as we get into the song, we are in the key of G, but we're not like fully in G major. We're going to kind of change some of our chords a little bit, but G is a great place to start. And one of the things that I like about it is from a rhythmic standpoint, this is just like a great thing in terms of foundational rhythmic bass playing, where we're going to be playing the root note. And we're really not doing anything crazy, but we're creating a very specific pulse that's going to match the kick drum pattern that we hear on the record. And then you can think of it as like 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, where we're kind of playing around 1, the and 3, and then we're setting up the next beat 1 with the and of 4. So we're going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And 1. So that and 1 is a really important setup that we do have in a lot of rock bass parts. And you'll hear that again, like if you go back and listen to the record, the kick drum pattern is going to, really sync up with this. And that's just a great approach to bass playing. Tight rhythm sections very often, especially in rock music, will have kind of the bass instrument and the bass or kick drum kind of marrying one another. And so we have that in this song. We're just kind of hanging out on the root note. We're playing our G chord. And then the next chord that we're going to go to is going to be a B. Now, if we were playing by the diatonic rules of harmony, this would be a B minor chord, because if you build chords on different notes within the scale, you would have the 1 chord is major, the 2 chord is minor, the 3 chord is minor. But in this song, Radiohead is doing their Radiohead thing and they're playing a little bit with chord quality, and it's going to be a B major chord. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean too much for us at this point because we are sticking to just the root note of this chord, but it's good to have that in mind as kind of something that is just good musical knowledge to have, and it's important to hear that along with the melody that we hear playing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pattern, we're going to move it over to that B chord, then we're going to play a C chord. And now the interesting thing is we're going to live on this C chord for a little bit, but we're going to first play it as a major chord, and then it's going to be played as a minor chord. So again, this is where some of that theory kind of like comes into play, where we're going to hang out there. The root note is going to stay consistent. We're going to play that C chord for what feels like 2 revolutions, where we play the first one like that. And then we're going to play it again, but we're going to take on this minor character because we're going to play the root note, and then we're going to be playing an ascending line that's going to go up a scale, but it's not going to go up the notes of a G major scale. We're actually going to kind of do a climb that's almost like kind of like climbing up the G minor scale, but it's really going to be going C, D, E flat, F, and then landing on this G or coming down to the root note here. But we're basically playing over what is a C minor chord, or that 4 chord, but playing it as a minor. And this note here really kind of speaks to that minor third of the chord. And then we have this little climbing line that gets us back to the root. So again, this is an interesting song because we have mostly root notes that are being played in the bass, except for this ascending line. And if we kind of use our G major scale, that's not going to cut it here. It's not going to work with the chord qualities of what the harmony is playing. So As we do it, we want to make sure that we are, even though we might not be playing the third of every chord, we want to acknowledge the harmony, and we know that we're playing a G major. We have our nice little foundation. We go to the B, the 3 chord, and our 4 chord, the C, and we're going to stay there, but now it's being played as a C minor chord, and we're going to have our ascending line. And we're going to do that. So you'll hear that if you play along with the record, it's going to sound really cool. And it, again, is going to not fully live in our G diatonic world. The other thing is, with this bass line, we can add in a little bit of subtlety with some of the choices that we make in terms of when we play the root note and then we deviate and maybe we play the 5th, or we play a little half step, just to kind of add something else. So when we're playing over this G chord, we can kind of just stay on the root note. But when we go to the B chord, you can see that I'm kind of going back and forth between playing the root note, that little and 1 rhythmic setup that I said before. We're going to we can use our lower 5th there, so we can go from our F sharp into the B, or the 5th of the chord, the lower 5th into the root note. And that's just kind of a little thing that we can do to add some nuance where we're not sticking totally to the root note, but we're, still playing to the notes of the chord. We're playing something that musically really works. You can kind of play with that note a little bit. As we go up to the C chord, we can do that same thing where, remember, we're playing a C chord, so we can play that lower 5th, which is the G, and come back to the C. Or we can do a little half step, going B to C. So we could play like this, or like this. And both of those little and 1 setups is a great place to kind of just do a little bit with the note choice that you have in terms of playing either the little half step below to create some tension, or using the 5th of the chord as just something that you can play other than the root note. So I know these may seem like subtle things, but that's kind of the beauty of this kind of bass playing, is that we have the ability to add a little bit of nuance, a little bit of subtlety to something that on the surface seems, a lot more straight ahead. And in some ways it is, but it's also something that, if you're informed as a player and you know how to make good choices, these are things that you can absolutely do. One other thing that you can do is you can play with the way we use this ascending line. So as we're playing over that C minor chord, I'm kind of playing these notes where I'm going C, D, E flat, F, with the intention of landing back at this lower G. But one thing you can do, and you'll hear this in the song, is that sometimes instead of playing this higher F, we'll go to this lower F, and that sets up the G. So that climbing line will go C, D, E flat, lower F, and then that'll set up our low G. So again, that's something that you can play with. You can alternate between using this ascending and the higher F or the lower F and returning to the G, because frankly, the most important thing is that we have that line that kind of fits the chord and sets up our next root note, which is coming to the top of the chord progression, landing on that G chord. So we can kind of approach it from different ways. So again, this is just a little bit of the subtlety, a little bit of the nuance that we have in this bass line, and something that is really common in rock playing, where on the surface it may sound very root notey, but as you dig a little deeper and you listen a little closer, you'll hear some other things that make it a unique part. So I hope you dig this. If you want to get tab notation, again, head over to my Patreon page and enjoy working through this. As a great addition to your song repertoire. Happy practicing, everybody. Keep it groovy.